So what do you think makes a successful portfolio?
Well, I think it's important to show the best of your work, but I think it's also important to show the development of your work. So, doing that via workbooks and things like that.
Yeah, and a breadth of subjects as well. So if you've done more than one discipline, giving like a little bit of a range of what you can do.
Yeah, and sometimes that may also include some work that you did the year before that you're applying.
Yeah.
Let's look at some portfolios.
Okay, so her cover letter is pretty informative. She's kind of gone over how she has a passion for going to art shows in her area, which is good.
And you get a range of work here, like there's the performance work and the sculptural installation work. And what's also really good is that you've got several images on one page, and it shows kind of not only the installational dimension, but also on some of these other pages how those ideas were developed.
Yeah, so a little bit of thinking and workbook.
Yeah.
And she's really clearly labelled as well the year that those works were made and what's actually being photographed.
Across these double page spreads you can see the researching, you can see the thinking, you can see examples of works that weren't realised and decisions that were made.
Definitely.
Great range of subject matter too, isn't it? Because relationship between these painting works and the sculptural works is also really strong. And how these ideas developed, I think...
is really evident.
Yeah, both through media and through subject matter. And again, back to a workbook page, really informative, shows the sort of lateral thinking across those media and ideas, which makes for a really strong submission.
Okay, so this is a student who's just included photography in her portfolio. I think that she's provided a really good spread for her work by including a scanned image of all three of her NCA boards.
And the quality of this work itself is really, really super high. The ideas related really well on the page, and little comments about how those decisions are made. I think what's interesting here too is this is someone who's really engaged in what photography does, as well as that real narrative that she's developed across the body of work.
Yeah, she's tried to sort of include a bit of a sequential thing going so that the work actually makes sense.
Yeah, and so although that's much a singular submission, I think it still really shows the thinking of the student.
Definitely. So this applicant has really drawn on their personal narrative and specifically a cultural context, which is really nice to see.
There's a lot of resolved works to start with here, which are quite ambitious, I think, for someone who hasn't been at art school, and that is nicely complemented by all these workbook pages that show how those ideas were developed as well.
A really nice flow of how she's been thinking throughout the year.
Shows someone who's really explorative and playful and quite sort of brave and fearless in their making. Performative work too.
Yeah, good documentation of a performance piece.
Yeah. And again, all this thinking, this reflective work about how decisions are made, I think that's really strong. It's an enormous amount of work covered here. Very, very playful. So this next folio looks quite closely at the relationship between painting and print, and operating at a really high level of skill, but also shows quite a lot of contextual knowledge around researching and things.
Yeah. I think it shows a really nice relationship between her art practices too, so her print practice and her paint practice have formed quite a strong relationship, which is evident.
And you can see both the European and the Japanese research coming through of contemporary art practice.
Yeah, it seems like she's been really on the ball with looking at artists and having an interaction with the art world too.
Yeah, and a range of ways of working in terms of how those ideas are developed as well.
Definitely.
And then at the end here, you've also got the inclusion of some work that seems to have sat outside of that program, and it's really nice to see the kind of sculptural and ideas being developed in a very sort of representational way as well. There are a number of portfolios that are not coming from a school program, and this candidate is one of those examples where you see series of works and you can see the thinking in them, and then something completes, and then there's another series of work.
It's good they've included work that's relevant and new work that they've been making recently, so it's not from a very long time ago. It's work that they've actually been engaging in the past couple of years.
And you can still sort of see the development of the thinking, and so then that's one body of work and here's another body of work, but it's with those explanatory notes still really gives an insight in terms of this person's thinking as well as the skill levels they've acquired.
Yes, yeah, it's an excellent example of someone who's not come from an NCA or a school background but has still shown a breadth of work as well.
Yeah, great.